الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. As mentioned, inshallah, we continue with the fiqh and with, as he says, القسم الثاني. The second part of the subject of al-fiqh is al-mu'amalat. And al-mu'amalat from al-mu'amala is dealing with two people dealing with each other, many people dealing with one another. And the word mu'amalat becomes in such a context that refers to transactions. The uqud, the contracts and transactions and the like of this. And always the ulama, when they start talking about this, or even from the beginning of matters of fiqh, they talk about the tartib or the orders of the chapters of fiqh, that it's not just put there for like that, for no wisdom behind it. It's meant to be that way. So whether it starts with the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, which is the tahara and the salah and the siyam and the pillars of Islam, and then talks about the rights of others. So this is one aspect of it. The other thing is the ibadah, which is the objective of one's life and the most important thing. Again, it's the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is an obligation upon every Muslim, and that's why it comes first. And then after that, the subject of al-mu'amalat, or transaction and buying and selling. And of course, there, as you would see, there's some differences you would see clearly here with these rulings. And we should not forget that we're dealing from the fiqh perspective of things. And this book is meant to be not with so much details. It's a brief introduction to some masail of fiqh. So it doesn't cover all of the masail or all the matters that we need. And that's why we need to keep it that way. And especially with the matters of transactions, all kinds of questions always comes up, but we want to limit ourselves, inshallah ta'ala, to what's mentioned, to understand it, to comprehend it, to have the proper tasawwur, the proper perception of what the mas'ala is, so that we learn things from its roots, from its principles, instead of being distracted of cases of this guy bought this house and these types of things. We can make it in a separate session, or after we're done completely and someone has a question, it has nothing to do with the dars. So if we can do that, or questions sometimes come up, it has to be just limited, inshallah ta'ala, to what we learn. And hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, we can learn it in the right way and we understand things. And there are many principles to be observed. And in matters of ilm in general, if you learn the principles of things, it's easy to relate everything to it, especially with the subject of al-mu'amalat. The first chapter of al-mu'amalat is al-bay' wa ahkamuhu wa shurutuh. The buying and selling, which is al-bay' and its rulings and its conditions. And as you would see, and many things come up, and you kind of, it's difficult sometimes to hold oneself back into a subject like this, but hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, we'll just go by what's in the book. But to get a brief understanding of this, one of which is everything in transactions or buying and selling or dealing with matters of uqud, it's all permissible unless we have an evidence in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that it's haram. So that's why all of what's going to be in this chapter, it's about the forbidden things. Yes, there will be mention of what's permissible, but it shows the ease of matters of fiqh, right? So people can invent all kinds of ways of buying and selling. All of it is permissible unless it's proven to be otherwise. And most of the forbidden, or if it's not all, in matters of the fiqh, goes around certain concepts when it comes to matters of buying and selling, as we will see also, inshallah ta'ala. Whether it's something that is haram, hurmat ayn, something that is haram, buying and selling wine, for example, or pork. This is a very obvious one. And this is a principle in the deen of Islam. إِذَا حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ شَيْئًا حَرَّمَ بَيْعًا. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbids something, it's haram to sell it. Anything that is haram, it's haram to buy it and sell it. So this is one aspect of it. The second one is the riba. And the subject of the riba is a detailed one, of course, and what comes under the riba, the different types of matters of riba with details. And the third one, which is also many of the contracts would have this, And the principle of it comes from this one word which is called al-gharar. Al-gharar. And al-gharar, as we will talk about it inshallah ta'ala, is deception. So something that is not clear. It's not clear who's buying what and who's purchasing what money he's paying, what money he's getting. So anything that is not tangible, not clear, then you would find in the rulings of many of the contracts becomes haram because of this, because the Prophet ﷺ haram al-gharar and also al-jahala, to have matters of things are not clear, ignorance of the outcome of the contracts and things of that nature. So we'll go to the book inshallah. He says here, as always with any chapter that he mentioned, some of the wisdom behind things or some of the major things. He says الربا معول هدم وتدمير لاقتصاد الأمم والشعوب وأحكام الربا. He's basically talking about the index of it, البيع, and then the riba, and how it's a destructive thing. الإجارة, the contract of الإجارة. الإجارة is meaning, you have the English translation? I didn't do my, I should go through the translation before I come, inshallah. But you have the translation with you? In the very first thing, the index, lease and renting. Even though al-ijara is much more broader than just lease and renting. If you're working for someone, or if you're hired by a company to work for them, the contract between you and this company is aqdu ijara, is a contract of ijara. They're leasing you, right? They're hiring you to work for them. So al-ijara, and then al-waqf, which is trust, and it's also the ahkam and its conditions. Wal-wasiyya, also some of the rulings of it. So the first thing that we'll go through inshallah ta'ala is al-bay'. Al-bay' is a word that means the thing and its opposite. So we know that al-bay' wa shara, that is buying and selling, they're both contained in the word al-bay'. So ba'a fulan, someone purchased something, or it can be also used that he sold something. Depends on the context. So what is the ta'rif? What is the definition of al-bay'? As always, the ways of the books of fiqh, there is the definition lughatan, and there's the definition shar'an. Lughatan, linguistically, he says al-bay'u lughatan. And with these definitions, you would find all kinds of definitions from the people of knowledge, from the madhahib even, and different definitions from different madhahib, and we're not into that level. So again, and I keep on repeating, we want to focus on what's here, inshallah ta'ala. He says al-bay'u lughatan, linguistically, masdar ba'a comes from ba', and it's a masdar pronoun. وهو مبادلة مال بمال. مبادلة, المبادلة, and we're learning Arabic inshallah, so it's good. Al-mubadala is to exchange from badal. Like, hajj badal, someone is making hajj on someone's behalf. So mubadalat mal bimal. Mal means what? It does not mean money. The word mal is usually translated as money. But the word mal in fiqh, anything yumawal, anything that has monetary value. So it doesn't mean the cash money or how much money you have. This is mal. This is mal. This is mal. Because it has a value. Anything that has a physical value, it's called mal. So it's the exchange of mal with mal. If it's money to money, then that's the sarf. This is the subject of the sarf, has certain rulings to it. It can be you're exchanging the microphone with a phone, and then you pay the difference or something, right? So any exchange, mal bimal, aw daf, so it can be exchange, any exchange, just the exchange. This comes linguistically under the category of, or the meaning of al-bay'. أو دفع عوض وأخذ ما عوض عنه. دفع عوض. العوض is when you have something in exchange of something as a recompense. Whether it means you lost something or you gave something. Basically, you gave something. You have something of value that you own. So you paid money for it. So when you give it to someone, you want something in return, as if you lost it, but you don't lose it because you want to have something in return because of a benefit that you want to have. وأخذ ما عوض عنه, to take in replace what would offset that loss of you have. It's just a literal meaning of what the exchange is. But here you would, whether it's exchange something with something, or you pay something, or money-wise, for a commodity or something of that nature. But we can say مبادلة مال بمال, and that's sufficient. شرعا, and that's what we are concerned about religiously, what does al-bay' means. And again, he chose a definition here, so we go by it, inshallah. And as always, the definitions are very precise, is comprehensive at the same time, so that it doesn't leave any loopholes or deficiencies in it. He says, عقد معاوضة. عقد means contract. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أوفوا بالعقود. Right? You have a عقد that means two parties. One is given a covenant or promise for something. We have also the عقد between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's عقد معاوضة. It's عقد, it's a contract, it's a covenant. معاوضة from العوض. That means there is something a person would get in return. It's not عقد هبة. It's not a gift. It's not charity. Charity is something else. When you give charity, you don't expect a return from the one that you give him charity. Otherwise, it's not charity. You seek rewards from Allah. This is something else. But al-mu'awada, and we need to remember this word, because it fixes a lot of issues that people have in misunderstanding. So mu'awada, that means you give something for something in return. You benefit. عقد معاوضة مالية. مالية from the mal, that means it's of a value. تفيد, the benefit of it, or it means ملك عين أو منفعة. ملك, the ownership of عين. عين is a specific matter or something that is tangible, something, a specific item. أو منفعة, because things can get also complicated, because there is something in the fiqh, just to have it on the side, which can be easily confusing. There is the ayn, something specific that you're buying and selling, and you can sell something, not ayn, but something mawsoof, something that is described, but not a particular thing, and it will come, inshallah. I will just mention it now, but don't worry about it, we'll talk about it later. Like, for example, and tell me the difference between these two, because again, the fiqh is a very important subject, and it makes you perfect your mind, even makes you very smart, mashallah. So it's when you, if A goes to B, right, and he goes and he wants to purchase something, he says, so the B is the one that is going to sell something. He says, I will sell to you this phone, right? So I would sell you my phone or this phone. He's selling a particular phone. But if he says to that person, I'm going to sell you a phone that is, it's described as such and such, like you go to the company itself, right? So it's not a particular phone. They give you the description of the phone that you're going to purchase, but you're not purchasing a particular one. They're still going to manufacture it even. This is two different things, right? And there's rulings that can be different from this to the other. Something, that's why the issue of milku ayn, something that is a specific thing that you're purchasing, or it's something that is mawsoof fi dhimma, or described. One of the very famous contracts, and that is aqd salam. A salam is that when you purchase, for example, the harvest that is not there yet of a fruit, for example, it's not there yet, but you're purchasing how it looks, the weight of it and everything, and you would pay even in advance. This is permissible, and there's nothing there yet, but as long as you pay upfront. But we'll talk about it inshallah ta'ala later. So here he says عقد معاوضة مالية. So we need to understand every word, and if you have the definition in English also, we might use that inshallah. So it's a contract, mu'awada, there is back and forth of something is given and something in return of value. Maliya, money-wise or value-wise. Tufidu milk ayn, that means would benefit, that a person would have an ownership of something specific. Aw manfa'a, or a benefit. And we'll talk about these examples. Benefit, that means a person can purchase a benefit of something instead of having something physical. على التأبيد, so there's بيع العين and بيع المنفعة. There's buying of something physically there, or purchasing something that is of a benefit, or something that is not a physical thing. لا على وجه he says على التأبيد. على التأبيد, that means forever. Forever, على التأبيد. Because if it's not على التأبيد, it's not buying and selling, it's going to go to the ijara, for example. When you rent, there's no such a thing as renting something forever. When you sell something, you're selling it forever. It becomes owned by that person until he sells it to someone else. لا على وجه القربة, not على وجه, not on the way of giving it as seeking reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or something like that. You're giving it for it to be with a return. And that لا على وجه القربة takes away the like of gifts. When you give a gift, you're not buying, you're giving a gift. So that's different than buying and selling. So this is the definition that he mentions here. عقد معاوضة مالية تفيد ملك عين أو منفعة. Leave it there, inshallah ta'ala, but it's the ownership of something specific, and or منفعة, which is a benefit. على التأبيد, forever, that means it's ownership. لا على وجه القربة, not based on something of a person seeking rewards and things like this. That means he gets a benefit from it. Then he says حكم البيع. What's حكم البيع? What's the ruling of البيع? Is it haram, makruh, permissible? He says البيع مشروع على سبيل الجواز. مشروع, that means it's part of the deen. على سبيل الجواز, that means it's permissible. It's permissible to buy and sell. دل على جوازه الكتاب والسنة والإجماع والمعقول. It's very clear in the Quran and in the Sunnah, and consensus among the ulama of the Ummah, and the ma'qul, with matters of reason, people, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them. They're always, since the beginning of time, they would exchange things, and this is the need of buying and selling. He mentions al-hikmah min ibahat al-bay', or the wisdom behind the permissibility of buying and selling. He says لما كانت النقود, just something of the wisdom behind it, when النقود, which is money, and السلع, the commodities, والعروض, the different physical matters, موزعة بين الناس, it's distributed among the people, عامة, all of them. وحاجة الإنسان تتعلق بما في يد صاحبه, and the need of a person might be in the hands of someone else. Someone else has what you need. وهو لا يبذله بغير عوض, and that person would not give it like that as a gift for you. He wants to get something in return. So وفي إباحة البيع قضاء لحاجته, and if he does this, then the person would fulfill his need. ووصول إلى غرضه, and he would attain his objective. لذا أحل الله البيع لتتحقق تلك المصالح. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted البيع, as the Quran clearly states that, وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. And the ayah says that Allah permitted البيع and forbade الربا, when the people said إنما البيع مثل الربا, buying and selling is like riba. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. They're not the same, but see how the way of the Quran, this all belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So who is the one that has the right to permit and to forbid? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made buying and selling halal for you, and He forbade riba for you. And many other, of course, means of wisdom. Then, as always with matters of fiqh, what are the arkan, and then shurut? What are the pillars of buying and selling? And an arkan means, if you remember, what's the rukn? The rukn is pillar. So that means, can the ibadah, before when we talked about ibadat, can the ibadah be valid if it's missing one rukn, for example? No. And there's no way around it. You have to do the rukn. And it's usually the rukn min mahiyat al-shay, from the exact same thing of the action. So it's rukn from arkan al-salah to recite al-fatiha. So al-fatiha is from the salah, not something that is outside of the salah. So what is arkan al-bay'? He says here, and this is Madhhab Ahmad and others, الصيغة والمتعاقدين ومحل العقد. Three things. الصيغة is the content, what they call the sigha in English. This is law, so I have to be very precise, and that's why I should, inshallah ta'ala, have the proper translation to the best of our ability, inshallah. الصيغة is what you write between the two parties, the actual content of the contract between two parties. But الصيغة, the main صيغة for البيع والشراء is الإيجاب والقبول. You know, in marriage, there is ijab and qabul, offering and acceptance. So this is the pillar that there's no differences of opinions among all of the madahib, that this is a pillar of bay'. Pillar of buying and selling is al-ijab wal-qabul. Someone is offering and someone is accepting. Without this pillar, there's no bay' and there's no shara. There's no buying and selling. Since we're not going into the different madahib, but madhab Imam Hanifa, they only mentioned this is the only rukn. And that actually makes a great sense, that this is the most important thing in matters. Actually, the outcome is the same. It's just a different categorizing things in different ways, but the outcome is the same. So they said as-sigha al-ijab wal-qabul, offering and acceptance. And others, they added to it al-muta'aqidain, which is basically al-bai' al-mushtari, the two muta'aqidain. The aqd has two ends. One is buying and one is selling. So these are pillars of the aqd. Whether they are pillars or from lawazim al-aqd. Lawazim al-aqd, that means if there's aqd, would a person would imagine aqd without someone buying and someone selling? So it's as if it's, why would you mention it as a pillar? But this is, again, there's some implications to this. Because there's certain rulings that has to be applied on the bai' and the mushtari. So, and there's many rulings with this. So al-bai' al-mushtari, the one that is selling and the one that is purchasing, al-muta'aqidain. The third pillar is mahill al-aqd. Mahill al-aqd, which is basically what the aqd is for. Al-thaman wal-muthaman. Al-thaman, the price, and what the price is for. So the car, this is al-muthaman. This is what you're purchasing. How much is the car? So you have a price and the commodity itself, or the thing that you're purchasing. So these two things are pillars of the contract of buying and selling, and there are rulings that would apply to it. You know, with regards to the price, different rulings, many rulings. And also when it comes to al-muthamman, or the thing that you're purchasing. So these are the three pillars: as-sigha, the ijab wal-qabul, offering and acceptance, which is the content of the aqd, and al-muta'aqidain, the two sides or the two parts of the aqd, which is al-bai' al-mushtari, the seller and the purchasing, and mahil al-aqd, the price and the thing that is priced. Is it clear so far? Then he's going to talk about sighatu al-bai'. Sigha, sigha is when you صاغ فلان شيئا, that means he made it. So you know how with the laws, normal person usually would fail to write a contract. You have to have a lawyer because of all of the different implications to it. So صيغة البيع هي الإيجاب والقبول. The إيجاب والقبول. إيجاب is what makes it there, which is usually referred to the offer, and then there's acceptance. وكل ما يدل على الرضا. So whether there is إيجاب and قبول clearly, or everything that gives an evidence that people are pleased. مثل قول البائع, like when the seller would say بعتك أو أعطيتك أو ملكتك. I sell this to you, I give you this, I give you the owner of this with such and such money. And the mushtari, the purchaser, would say اشتريت, I purchased, تملكت, I own, then from you this, أو ابتعت أو قبلت, I accept, أو شبه ذلك. And this is, if it's said, of course, it's very obvious. Obvious ijab and qabul. With whatever people say. It doesn't have to be in the Arabic language, right? In any language that people would say in their language, in their urf, in their culture, that means they're buying and selling. And as you see, you know, you can exchange two things. A person might take it as a gift, or he might take it as he's purchasing from you. What makes the difference? There's something that makes it clear that it's not a gift, right? I'm selling this and you're purchasing it. Whether it's with clear statement, or as we mentioned that yesterday, even you don't have to say anything. And he'll talk about the things from a distance even. You don't have to say anything as long as it's clear that both parties are agreeing to this transaction. Again, you go to the store, you give money, you take the thing, you don't say anything. No one says, I sell, I buy, nothing of that nature. It's very clear. Or, virtually or something like this. And this is all valid with an ijab wal qabul. So whether it's an ijab wal qabul with speech or what anything that would give an evidence that both parties are pleased with the transaction. And this again is different from one place to the other, from one time to the other. And he says here ويصح البيع بالصيغة الفعلية من طرف واحد. The بيع is valid بالصيغة. الصيغة again is the content of what is being said or what is being done for the بيع to be valid. الفعلية. فعلية means action wise. من طرف واحد from one side only. ومن الطرفين. And from both sides, the seller and the buyer. Meaning, again, you take something. So you made an action to show that you're purchasing something. And it's all agreed upon and it looks clearly that it's buying and selling. It's open for people to buy and sell the way that they like, as long as it's based on both parties are agreeing that this is something called buying and selling. And he says here, التعاقد بالهاتف, with the phone. Can you purchase something with the phone? المحادثة الهاتفية تعتبر هي مجلس العقد. When you're talking to someone on the phone, this is the majlis, because مجلس العقد has significance to it as it's going to be mentioned. مجلس العقد, you're sitting, two parties are sitting to write a contract of something or purchasing something. This is called مجلس العقد. There are rulings that pertains to مجلس العقد, as long as they are in session. Right? They're not just one, but the major one is خيار المجلس. خيار المجلس, as it will come inshallah ta'ala, and many people they do not know, unless a person would make it as a condition to remove this condition of خيار المجلس. خيار المجلس meaning that if you're sitting with someone, you purchasing a car and he says, okay, I'll give it to you for 1,000. He said, I agree. Where's the contract? Here's the contract. You're writing the contract and you have the money and everything. And you give the money and he wrote the contract and everything is done. And you're still in the majlis. In the Shara, you have the right to break all of this as long as you did not depart. And you have the right to say, I don't want to sell it. I don't want to purchase anything. And he should not get upset. He should not get angry. This is your right. Unless there is something that would say once you sign, the deal is done. They have to say it. It has to be made clear that once you sign, the deal is over. That means you purchased it. But if you signed and then you kind of tear the contract, the thing is, as long as you are in the majlis, and this is one of the things that has to be explained or mentioned, but will come inshallah ta'ala. So that's why he says here, المحادثة الهاتفية تعتبر هي مجلس العقد. When you're talking on the phone, or even when you're purchasing online, right? This is as if this is the majlis of al-aqd. This is the majlis of the contract. وهي تنتهي بانتهاء الاتصال. It ends with when you hang up the phone. لأن العرف محكم في بيان مجلس العقد وانقضائه, which is here a principle. العرف, what constitutes the مجلس العقد? What makes the majlis or the physical or non-physical gathering of buying and selling? It used to be not long ago that both parties have to be physically present and they will talk. It doesn't have to be anything written. You can just make a majlis with speaking. Ijab al-Qabul, agreed upon, thank you very much. They shake their hands or they don't and they depart. Once they depart, the matter is over. As long as they're sitting together, negotiating, even if a person says, yes, okay, I agree, but then he changes his mind, he has the right, as long as they're sitting together. But then the rule here is al-urf. What's known to the people to be majlis al-aqd, it's majlis aqd. So لأن العرف محكم, and this is a huge subject in the matters of fiqh, that al-urf is to be referred to, especially if there's no nas, there's no text clearly in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So people can invent all kinds of ways of how to do the actual purchasing or transactions, and as long as it's not someone is forced to do something or someone is being cheated or lied, and which is something else. But as long and this is considered to be then is majlis al-aqd. And once it's done, so for example, just give an example, if you're purchasing something online and you even put your information in the website or your card and everything, right? So you don't even have to put that in, and there's the button there. Once you hit that and it flies away, then the majlis is gone. It's done. Before that, it's your choice. But once you did, this is something that people now would see that the matter is over. They even give you the choice of canceling. If they do, then it's up to them. So لأن العرف محكم. العرف محكم is the عرف is to be judged in knowing the majlis العقد, whether it's physical or non-physical, over the phone or from a distance, things like this. In the subject of marriage, some of the ulama, when they forbade this, when it comes to marriage, because of the sanctity of marriage, and the mix what's haram halal. So who's that guy in the other side? Is he really the wali or not? Is it really he's going to marry this person or not? And the person doesn't know. People can make all kinds of fraud as a result of this, and it happens, by the way. So that's why when it comes to marriage, it's to be completely avoided. But in buying and selling, the matter is al-urf muhakkam. Then after the pillars, he mentioned 7 conditions for al-bay'. We can go through them quickly, inshallah, and see in the next 10 minutes, inshallah, if you don't mind. These are conditions for the bay'. The first one, التراضي بين البائع من البائع والمشتري. التراضي is الرضا. Both the buyer and the seller are pleased, are agreeing to this. أو من يقوم مقامهما, or those who act on their behalf. So you can make wakala, you can ask someone to purchase something for you, right? And if that one that you give him the money or you give him the authority to purchase something for you, he buys from the other side, then that means the transaction is valid. We do that all the time. Like if you send your wife, you send your son to purchase something for you, he's acting on your behalf. And there's also rulings with this, and like the Prophet ﷺ, when he gave one of the Sahaba 2 dinar, you know the story? He gave him 2 dinar to purchase a shah, a goat or a sheep. So the Sahabi went to the market and he purchased a shah for 1 dinar and another shah for another dinar. So instead of 1, he purchased 2. And he sold 1 for a dinar. And he came to the Prophet ﷺ with the 2 dinar and a shah. And the Prophet ﷺ praised him. And, so the Prophet ﷺ was pleased with his action. He acted on the behalf of the Prophet ﷺ without his permission. So this has rulings to this, and they call it bay' al-fuduli. Al-fuduli, when is it permissible, when it's not permissible, things like this. And what's the implication to that, to the aqd, if it's done? So the first one is a tarad. They're both pleased with buying and selling, whether themselves or those who act on their behalf. Number 2, جواز التصرف من المتعاقدين. جواز التصرف, the permissibility of the dealing itself from both parties. Meaning, as he says, بأن يكون كل منهما حرا مكلفا رشيدا. Both of them are a free person. He's not a slave. He's mukallaf. He's not a child. He's someone that is responsible for his actions. Rashid is not safi. He's not someone that is insane. So that's why when we said the pillar, one of the pillars of buying and selling is al-muta'aqidain, both al-bai' wal-mushtari. Certain conditions has to apply to the bai'. Can I say the bai' and we understand who's the bai'? The seller, right? When mushtari is the purchaser. So if someone insane, he sells his car, is it valid? No. It's not valid because he's not mukallaf in this case. So the permissibility of dealing with whatever they have, both parties, al-bai' wal-mushtari. So and he left it like this: جواز التصرف. جواز التصرف, the permissibility of giving something away or selling something. Number 3, أن تكون السلعة مباحة. That the sil'a is the commodity or the thing that is being sold. It's permissible. مباحة النفع. It's permissible to be used. فلا يجوز بيع ما لا نفع فيه. It's not permissible to sell something that is no benefit. ولا ما نفعه محرم. So the first one, it's not permissible to sell something that is no benefit to it. It's not permissible to sell something that is haram. The benefit of it is haram, like al-khamr wal-khinzir, wine and pork and things like this. ولا ما فيه منفعة لا تباح إلا حال الاضطرار. And also the third one, it is not permissible to sell something that has benefit, but it's only permissible when it's a necessity or dying, and like a person dying, if he eats a maita, a dead animal, or pork even. It's only permissible if a person is about to die and that's the only meat in front of him. So in general, it's not permissible to sell these things. So not everything that has benefit is permissible for a person to sell if it's haram. But if it's no benefit to it, then it's not permissible to sell, which shows the importance of the money. And you might find in the books of fiqh, some of the things that are mentioned used to be of no benefit before, but now it has benefit. They always mention the hasharat. Hasharat is the insects. There's no benefit for it. Why would a person purchase insects? But as the ulama, they say, the contemporary ones and so on, that nowadays, for example, if someone is in his school, he has to have an insect to dissect it, for example. And this insect, he cannot just catch it flying, he has to go purchase it. So there's a benefit for him in this case. So it's okay to sell it and it's okay to purchase it, right? So something that was of no benefit before, now it has benefit. So this is to pay attention to this. So the sil'a has to be permissible and benefiting. Two things, permissible and benefiting. If it's haram, it's not permissible. If it's not benefiting, it's not permissible. Number 4, أن يكون المبيع مملوكا للبائع. المبيع, we have البائع is the seller, right? المبيع is what? Is what is being sold. المبيع is what is being sold. مملوكا, owned للبائع, owned to the seller. He has to own it. That means it's not permissible to sell something that you don't own. أو مأذونا له في بيعه وقت العقد. Or if he does not own it, مأذونا له, he's been given the permission to sell it while he is writing the contract or doing the majlis al-aqd. Because he might have been given permission before, but then that permission is gone from him. So it has to be there. While he is doing the actual buying or the actual selling, he has to be given the permission, not that he has to instantly be called by the owner that you can sell it. No, it means that he's been given the permission to sell this while he is doing that. I mean, it can be a year before, but as long as it's not been taken away from him. So it has to be owned, and that's why this is a huge subject, as the Prophet ﷺ, it's not permissible to sell what you do not own. Number 5, أن يكون المبيع معلوما بالوصف والمشاهدة. المبيع is again what is being sold, has to be معلوما, has to be known, بالوصف, with description, والمشاهدة, or seeing. So can it be only with description? Yes. But then you have the khiyar, you have the choice. Say, for example, you purchase something on the phone and there's no picture of it, but he describes it in details, and the jahala and the ignorance of it is removed. It's very clear, and all the characteristics of it. For example, you're purchasing a phone, no scratches in it whatsoever, something like this, and then it comes, you receive it, and there's a scratch in it. Then it's very clear that you have the right to return it. This is, of course, an obvious one. So it has to be ma'luman with al-wasf, whether it's with description or al-mushahada. You cannot purchase something, as it will come also, inshallah, that you don't know it. Like sometimes you go to the stores, it's a closed bag. Right? The bag is for $2. You don't know what's in the bag. It's not permissible to purchase something like this. You have to know what's in there. Or a truckload of things. And it can be something expensive or cheap. It's not permissible. It has to be known. Number 6, أن يكون الثمن معلوما. The price has to be known. So it cannot be ambiguous. الثمن معلوما, أن يكون الثمن معلوما when you're purchasing something. And الثمن at all times. Not that it has more than one price. If you purchase it, cash is this. If you purchase it in payments, it's this. And then you're purchasing and you don't know if you purchase it like now or later. Or if it's for later, it keeps on increasing. There's no one set price for it. Because if you bring the money after a month, it's going to be that price. If you bring it after 2 months, it's a different price. And you take it and you go home and you purchased it. So what is the thaman? What is the price? If it's after a month, it's that much. If it's after 2 months, it's a different price. That's haram. Has to be one set price. Number 7, أن يكون المبيع مقدورا على تسليمه. المبيع, what is being sold, a person has to have the مقدورا from the person has the ability, the power to hand it over. مقدورا على تسليمه. He has to own it, he has to take it to his physically to his property or to his place. فلا يصح بيع الشارد, as an example, it's not permissible, it's not valid to sell something that الشارد, something that flew away, a camel that is lost. He had a camel yesterday, but it's lost, and he's selling it. I'm gonna sell you my lost camel. That's not permissible. والطير في الهواء, or birds flying in the skies, you know, ونحوهما, right, or the like of this, or fish in the water. You go, a fisherman sitting on the, fishing, and you say, I want to purchase 5 pounds of whatever the fish that you want. Sure, no problem. And you make the deal, and then he goes, and that's not permissible. He doesn't own it. And he's not able to even hand it over. So 2 things, he doesn't own it, and he doesn't have the ability. What if something happens and he's not able to? But you can have wa'd, they can have promise, but this is a different situation. So he has to have the ability to give the person what he sell, and this is the 7th one. So we'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala. So these are the 7 conditions, and we can keep it like that because we need to keep it without mentioning too many examples, because many of the issues comes as a result of not understanding these conditions. So both parties are pleased, they're both valid for them to deal with their money or to buy and sell, with being having the sanity and things like this. I say it right. It has to be benefiting the commodity itself. So some things are related to the 2 parties. At-taradi, pleased. Both of them, they have to fit to be able to buy and sell. And then after that, it deals with al-mabi' itself, the commodity itself. So it has to be permissible and benefiting, and it has to be owned by the seller, or he's given the permission. And it has to be described, it has to be known, whether it's with description or with seeing, and the price has to be known, and they have the ability to give it and to ship it, to hand it over, things of that nature. So these are conditions. If it's not there, and the buying or they still sold it, then this is permissible for the person to send it back. Does it mean that the transaction is not valid? That means it's even if he agrees to it after he receives it? No, he can. So if someone, again, he described, and he, as the example that we mentioned, the phone has no scratches in it whatsoever. And he purchased it, and it reached him, there's a scratch. If he says, okay, I'll take it, it's up to him. So then it's khiyar, the choice of the purchaser. He has the choice, but he has the right to refuse. Is it clear? Sometimes it's because of with language wise, but inshallah, hopefully we'll prepare with the language, inshallah. Anything that is different in the translation, or anything that is not clear?
For number 4, the seller must own what he is selling or have permission. The second part, or have permission to sell it at the time of the contract. I didn't quite understand this.
Right. The number 4, that the person has to own what he's selling, or it's been given the permission for him to sell it. That means he doesn't own it, but he's acting on someone else's behalf. So someone says to his son, sell my house. I'm traveling, sell my house, and whatever you want to sell it for, or that you give him a price, whatever there is. So if he tells him this and he travels, and then the son, after 2 months or something, he finds something and he sells the house, he is given the permission while the contract is on. But if he tells him this and then he leaves, and then he calls him after a week and he says, you know what, if the house is not sold after a month, forget about it, don't do it unless you call me, for example. And then the guy came, the one that wants to purchase the house, after the month by 1 day, and he sells the house. It's not permissible, because while he was doing this, he was not given the permission. And it doesn't mean that while he's writing the contract, he has to call, do I have the permission? No, the permission can be given from before, but that's what is meant. وقت العقد. Yes. Yes, non-tangible benefit. Even though I'm not sure if you can accurately say that. There always the famous example of that is when a person sells the right to pass in his yard. I'm not sure if there's something like that here in this country. Sometimes you want to come to the masjid and there's houses on the way. So you have to go all kinds of streets like this. So a guy would say, I give you the right to walk in my house, right of way, and you purchase that. So they have right of way and you purchase it. No. So this is manfa'. You're not purchasing the land, you're just purchasing the benefit. Yeah. If it, you would pay money for it. It has a monetary value because you pay the money for it. The toll. Right. Right. No, inshallah.
That person have to have the permission, or have something, describe it, and give somebody the permission to tell that description.
Say that again. Who's the owner?
The owner is giving someone the permission.
Right. Okay.
So that owner should have the physical object, or can also have like a description saying, I have something that looks like this. I give you the permission.
True. The owner of something, if he gives the permission for someone else to sell it on his behalf, that person doesn't even have to have it when he's selling it, or he doesn't even have to have even seen it, as long as the description is very clear. So yeah, as long as everything is clear and there's no jahala or gharar, no ignorance or no deception, that's fine. Paying for an order?
An order. Your order is paid, but it has to be made for.
Oh, if you pay for something, it has to be made. We'll talk about that inshallah. This is a specific contract called Bay'u Salam. And they used to do this, especially with plants and cultivations and things like this. So the farmer, he doesn't have the means. So they would come and say, okay, he has an acre of land, and he's gonna plant in it, for example, apples. So the person will come and say, I will purchase from you this how many, whatever the weight that they would use, how many pounds of apples, which is around probably there's gonna be this piece of land. So they would agree to the description: red apples, this kind of apples, how many of what's the weight exactly, and he would pay upfront what he's going to purchase it for, and the farmer takes this money and he uses it to cultivate his land. But then at the end, what if the farmer did not, the land did not come up with this? He has to purchase it. He has to do something with the money that is given, with the description that has been there. Unless there is a disaster happen, this is a different situation. So the same thing applies as the ulama. They say with anything that is being manufactured and not manufactured, or houses or apartments or something of that nature, or something that is not manufactured yet. Sometimes people they purchase computers and it's not done yet. It's not manufactured yet. But with the clear descriptions, and you pay the money and then they make it and then they send it. That's fine as long as the description fits exactly what you purchased. No. Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, you have something, somebody, you told him, sell this for $5, but you are going to sell it for $6.
No.
And then you give it $1
Right. If someone is given the permission to sell something on one's behalf, he is wakil. Al-wakil, meaning that he's acting on the behalf of the one that told him to sell. He has no rights whatsoever to do anything for his own benefit. So, for example, if he told him sell this car for 1,000, unless there's other deals with them. So he sells it for 1,500. It is not permissible to take the 500 in his pocket. He has to give him the 1,500, unless the owner would say, I want 1,000 in this car. If you sell it for 2,000, go ahead. I just give me 1,000 and the rest is yours. that's fine. But if he's acting on his behalf only, then it's not permissible to make any deals or even to get it's a lot of these things comes up. For example, if the even someone is doing some remodeling for someone in the home, and the deal is part of the deal is that I will purchase the paint and things like this. You purchase it and I'll work. You just give me labor. And he says, okay, you purchase it for me, and then and tell me how much, and then add the labor. So that person, if he's honest, and the deal is that he's going to purchase it for him. So he has a deal with the store because he's a worker, and instead of 100, he's gonna get it for 50. So can he says, well, I'm gonna give him, and then in the store, if that owner goes to the store, he'll get it for 100. But for that person, since he's acting on his behalf, it is not permissible to sell it for him or to give it for 100, even though the bill can be with 100 and he has a separate deal with. This is not permissible because he's acting on his behalf. He can say something else in the contract. He says, I have deals and things like this. I'll get you. They can make it in such a way that he's not acting on his behalf. He's having a commission as a result of this. So these types of things has to be completely clear so that there's no ambiguity in it. Allah. But can we take the hadith first if someone wants to leave, inshallah? Hadith, inshallah, number 70. Hadith number 70. Everybody's there? عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إن أمتي يأتون يوم القيامة غرا محجلين من أثر الوضوء فمن استطاع منكم أن يطيل غرته فليفعل متفق عليه واللفظ لمسلم. إن أمتي to just take the hadith. إن أمتي يأتون يوم القيامة غرا محجلين من أثر الوضوء فمن استطاع منكم أن يطيل غرته فليفعل. The hadith here, first Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he is quoting from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam saying, إن أمتي يأتون يوم القيامة, my ummah comes on the day of al-qiyamah غرا محجلين من أثر الوضوء. غرا, al-ghurra is the whiteness that is in the face of the horse. The horse when it's brown or so and has whiteness on its face. This is the ghurra of the horse. And muhajjalin. At-tahjil is the whiteness in the, they call it qawa'im al-faras, the shin of the horse. So you would find whiteness in the head and whiteness by the foot or by the shin of the horse. So the Prophet ﷺ, it says the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ will come like that in the day of judgment. Like that. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he would know his ummah in the midst of all of the nations by this. Everyone else doesn't have this. And the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ are the only ones that they have this whiteness on their foreheads and on their foot. So they stick out in front in the midst of all the nations, which shows the virtues of this ummah. And it shows also that if someone is not making wudu, he's not from the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, meaning that he's not making salah. This is غُرًّا مُحَجَّلِينَ من أثر الوضوء, from the traces of the wudu, from what the wudu is. And then this is, as you see here, the end of the quote, because what comes after that, it's from the statement of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. He said afterwards, Abu Hurairah, فَمَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يُطِيلَ غُرَّتَهُ فَلْيَفْعَلْ. Whoever among you is able to yutil, to make it long, his ghurra, to make it more excessive and more long, فَلْيَفْعَلْ, let him do so. So when you're washing your face, right, go a little bit over. But don't be غلو or making extremism and excessiveness. Right? You wash your face only, the maximum is 3 times. But make sure that the water is on the forehead and you go a little bit up. But if a person does only the face, he applies the hadith. But this is from the statement of Abu Hurairah, and Abu Hurairah would say this also from what he sees and what he would hear from the Prophet ﷺ as a recommended act. The same thing with washing the foot. The foot is all the way to the ankles only. So if you go higher a little bit, that's what he meant. Because this also will come, white in the day of judgment, which is a virtuous thing. Allah. It's usually التحجيل is in the legs, but it also applies in the arms, and that's what even some of the narrations that it goes up. So he would do this. رضي الله عنه. So yes, it applies on the arms also. Yes, I missed that. It's the arms and the legs now. جزاكم الله خير. Yes. While the ثمن أن يكون الثمن معلوما, that the price has to be known when the contract is there. You purchased something for $10, and that's the end of it. It's not going to change after you purchase it. You purchase it for 10, that means it's 10. It can be changing. The morning it was that one price, the evening another price, but while you're purchasing it, you purchase it with that one. If you say, for example, in a case where people would purchase something and it says 10, but after they purchase it, then they say to them, no, actually it's 15. You have the right to cancel the contract because you didn't purchase it for 15. But what becomes haram if it's a person purchased something that has more than one price. So it's, again, as I said, you purchase it without paying anything. You purchase it, but you pay it on payments. And they say the price, if you pay it after 1 month is that much, after 2 months is that much. So it's not known. Like basically with the matters of even riba, or those who would if they want to make a halal contract, the owner, he would sell it with payments, that's fine. But what is the price over 10 years? 100,000. If he comes after 5 years, it's still 100,000. Unless there's a mas'ala called da'wa ta'ajjal, which is not in the contract. The person comes after 5 years and he says, I have 95. Would you take it and forgive me for the rest? Sure, no problem. That's permissible like this, but not to be in the contract. If the call ends by accident. If the call ends by accident, is the majlis is considered over? If everything is done and the purchase is over with, and they agreed and everything is done. Of course, if it's cut before they finish, it's a different situation. But if they're still in the negotiation, I'm sorry, the deal is done. It has to be clear. I'm not sure how. I got 5,000. The other guy said sure, and then before he can change his mind, he's about to change his mind, but the call dropped. Allah, I do not know, but it seems, Allahu A'lam, that the majlis is not done yet. So there has to be something, the urf, something that has to be perceived with the norm. We didn't finish it yet. No. Yes. The urf changes with time and location. What people would agree, or it's known to them by what is known, that this is how they buy and sell. And this can be many different things in many different ways. There's no thing to adopt, and you cannot make a real rule to it. Everyone, they have their own ways. The attendance code is Ijab Qabul 23. Ijab Qabul 23. So it's IJAB QABUL and then the number 23. In the Arabic book, it says 0.5. The object sold should be known with sifa, والمشاهدة. But in English it says by description or seeing are both necessary, or either one or other is enough. Either one or the other is enough. But as long as the wasf is as if a person is seeing it, not missing anything. And the last question, what is the meaning of at-ta'bid? From abada. Ta'bid is forever. That means a person is not purchasing something for a month. That's not purchasing. He purchased it and he owns it. And you would find all kinds of things. For example, as it will come with al-bay' al-sahih and the conditions for that. You know, when someone sells something but there's still payment on it, and he says, I'll keep it in my name till you finish the payments. He did not sell anything. That's not buying and selling. So he has to own it. Otherwise, he's not get sold. He can make a rahan. He can say, okay, I sell you this, but you cannot sell it till you pay all the payments. Sure. But he owns it. And it's his name, not the seller's name. Anything else, inshallah? بارك الله فيكم. صلى الله وسلم وبارك محمد وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.